Welcome to Nightmare Network, where nightmares come to life. Get ready to dive into the darkest corners of the human psyche, where every shadow hides a secret and every whisper sends shivers down your spine. So grab a blanket, turn off the lights, and get ready for a journey into the unknown, the possessed playground. Our school had always prided itself on its playground, a sprawling expanse of colorful equipment that beckoned to children like a siren's call. Swings soared high into the sky, slides spiraled downward with exhilarating twists and turns, and climbing frames reached toward the heavens, promising adventure and excitement. It was the envy of every kid in the neighborhood, a haven of joy and laughter during the daylight hours. But as the sun dipped below the horizon and the shadows stretched across the playground, a sinister energy seemed to awaken, lurking just beneath the surface like a dormant beast waiting to be unleashed. It started innocently enough, with the swings. They would sway gently in the breeze, their chains rattling softly as if pushed by an unseen hand. At first, we brushed it off as a trick of the wind, a quirk of physics that we couldn't quite explain. But then, as the nights grew longer and darker, the movements became more pronounced, more deliberate, as if guided by a malevolent force. And it wasn't just the swings. Soon, the slides joined in, their metal surfaces groaning and creaking as they twisted and contorted into grotesque shapes. The climbing frames, once sturdy and secure, now seemed to writhe and squirm like living creatures, their bars bending and flexing in unnatural ways. I tried to warn the other kids, to tell them of the danger that lurked in the playground after dark, but they just laughed and called me crazy. They couldn't see what I saw, the sinister aura that surrounded the playground like a shroud, the malevolent energy that seemed to pulse through the very air. And then, one fateful night, as I watched from my bedroom window, I saw it. The playground, coming alive with a terrifying intensity, the equipment moving of its own accord as if possessed by some unseen force. The swings soared through the air with wild abandon, the slides twisted and turned in impossible angles, and the climbing frames contorted into grotesque shapes that seemed to defy all laws of nature. I tried to scream, to alert my parents to the danger that lurked just beyond our doorstep, but no sound escaped my lips. It was as if the playground itself had stolen my voice, leaving me powerless to do anything but watch in horror as the nightmare unfolded before my eyes. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the movement stopped, leaving me alone in the darkness, with only the memory of the possessed playground to keep me company. But I knew that the terror was far from over. The playground was alive with a malevolent energy that hungered for more than just our fear, and I feared that we were all just puppets in its twisted game. The cursed textbook. Ever since I could remember, I had been drawn to the mysteries of the occult, the idea of tapping into unseen forces, of unraveling the secrets of the universe, held an irresistible allure that I couldn't ignore. So when I stumbled upon an old leather-bound textbook nestled among the dusty shelves of the school library, claiming to contain ancient spells and forbidden rituals, I knew I had to have it. The book was unlike anything I had ever seen before, its pages yellowed with age, its ink faded and smudged from years of handling. As I flipped through its contents, my heart raced with excitement, eager to uncover the hidden knowledge that lay within. But as I delved deeper into its pages, I began to realize that this was no ordinary textbook. The spells and rituals it contained were not the harmless incantations I had expected, but dark and twisted invocations that spoke of summoning spirits and harnessing forbidden powers. At first, I dismissed it as nothing more than a work of fiction, a collection of fanciful tales designed to titillate the imagination. But then, strange things began happening around me, objects moving on their own, whispers in the night, shadows lurking in the corners of my vision. I tried to rid myself of the book, to burn it or bury it or throw it away, but it always found its way back to me, as if it was bound to me by some unseen force. No matter how hard I tried to resist its pull, I found myself drawn back to its pages again and again, unable to break free from its twisted embrace. And then, one fateful night, as I lay in bed, bathed in the eerie glow of the moonlight streaming through my window, I heard it, a voice calling to me from the darkness, promising power and knowledge beyond my wildest dreams. At first, I tried to resist its siren call, to push the voice from my mind and banish it from my thoughts. but the temptation was too great, the allure too powerful to ignore. I found myself drawn deeper and deeper into the book's twisted embrace, surrendering myself to the darkness that lurked within its pages. With each incantation I uttered, each ritual I performed, I could feel myself slipping further and further away from reality, lost in a haze of power and madness. And as I gazed into the abyss that lay beyond, I realized with a sinking dread that I had become trapped in the very darkness I had sought to conquer. The cursed textbook had claimed me as its own, binding my soul to its pages for all eternity. And as I languished in its twisted embrace, I knew that there would be no escape from the horrors that awaited me in the depths of its forbidden knowledge. The haunted classroom. As the final bell of the day reverberated through the empty halls, I found myself lingering behind in the deserted classroom, the fluorescent lights flickering above me like the dying embers of a fading fire. Most of my classmates had already rushed out, eager to escape the confines of the school and embrace the freedom of the outside world. But I had one last assignment to complete before I could join them. With a heavy sigh, I settled into my seat, the wooden desk cold beneath my fingertips. Pulling out my textbooks and notebooks, I began to focus on the task at hand, determined to finish my homework before the day's end. But as I delved into the complexities of algebraic equations and grammatical rules, a strange sensation washed over me, like a chill wind blowing through the room. At first, I brushed it off as nothing more than a trick of my imagination, a byproduct of spending too much time alone in the empty classroom. But as the minutes ticked by and the feeling persisted, I couldn't shake the sense that something was terribly wrong. The air grew thick with the scent of decay, a putrid odor that clawed at my senses and made my stomach churn with nausea. I glanced around the room, half expecting to find a source for the foul stench, but the walls remained empty and the windows sealed shut. And then, as if on cue, the temperature in the room began to plummet, the once warm air turning frigid and icy against my skin. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to ward off the cold, but it seemed to seep into my bones, chilling me to the core. I tried to shake off the feeling of unease, to focus on my work and push aside the growing sense of dread that threatened to consume me. But then I heard it, the faint sound of footsteps echoing through the empty room, getting closer and closer with each passing moment. My heart leaped into my throat as I spun around in my seat, searching for the source of the sound. But there was no one there. No shadowy figure lurking in the corners, no ghostly apparition haunting the halls. I blinked in confusion, trying to make sense of what I had just heard. Had it been my imagination playing tricks on me? Or was there something more sinister at play? Before I could ponder the question further, the footsteps began again, louder this time, as if whatever unseen presence was stalking the room had drawn nearer. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end as the sound echoed through the empty space, filling me with a sense of primal terror. I wanted to run, to flee from the haunted classroom and never look back. But something held me rooted to my seat, a paralyzing fear that gripped me like a vice and refused to let go. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the footsteps stopped, leaving me alone in the darkness, with only the echoes of my own fear to keep me company. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, my heart racing and my breath coming in ragged gasps. Eventually, I gathered up my belongings and fled from the classroom, desperate to escape the oppressive atmosphere that seemed to linger in the air like a malevolent force. As I made my way down the empty hallways, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that unseen eyes followed my every move. And though I tried to tell myself that it was just my imagination running wild, deep down, I knew the truth. The classroom was haunted, and I had stumbled upon something far more sinister than I could ever have imagined. The empty hallway. It was a typical day at school, the kind where the minutes dragged on like hours, and the droning voice of the teacher faded into background noise. But amidst the mundane routine of classes and lectures, there was an underlying sense of unease that hung in the air like a heavy fog. As I made my way through the dimly lit hallway, the fluorescent lights flickering overhead cast eerie shadows on the linoleum floor. The chatter of students echoed off the walls, blending together into a cacophony of sound that grated on my nerves. I tried to shake off the feeling of unease that settled over me like a suffocating blanket, but it clung to me like a persistent shadow, refusing to be ignored. The hallway seemed longer than usual, stretching out before me like an endless corridor leading to nowhere. I quickened my pace, eager to escape the oppressive atmosphere that seemed to permeate the air. But with each step I took, the shadows seemed to deepen, the darkness swallowing me whole until I felt like I was suffocating in its embrace. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see someone, or something, lurking in the shadows behind me. But the hallway was empty, save for the flickering lights and the distant echoes of footsteps. I turned back around, determined to put some distance between myself and whatever malevolent force seemed to be lurking in the darkness. But when I glanced back again, my heart skipped a beat. There, at the far end of the hallway, stood a figure, tall and imposing, its features obscured by the shadows. My breath caught in my throat as I stared at it, my mind racing with fear and uncertainty. I tried to call out, to ask if they needed help or if they were lost. But no sound escaped my lips, the words dying in my throat before they could take shape. The figure remained motionless, its presence casting a pall over the hallway like a storm cloud on the horizon. I felt a primal urge to run, to flee from whatever malevolent force had invaded our school. But my feet remained rooted to the spot, as if held in place by some unseen hand. And then, with a suddenness that stole the breath from my lungs, the figure vanished into thin air, leaving me alone in the empty hallway, trembling with fear and uncertainty. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, my heart pounding in my chest and my breath coming in ragged gasps. Eventually, I gathered up the courage to continue on my way, my footsteps echoing off the walls like a drumbeat in the silence. But as I made my way through the deserted hallway, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that unseen eyes followed my every move. And though I tried to tell myself that it was just my imagination running wild, deep down I knew the truth. Something sinister lurked in the shadows, something that hungered for more than just my presence.